Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, X7, your agent of animated musical awesomeness. There we go. Today is Friday, and it is Seven Song Friday, but this is our first in the Seven Musical Song Friday, or from songs from music, and we are going to be looking at the 1970 feature film, the oops, that says Butch Patrick, the Phantom Tollbooth, which coincidentally enough, if you are unfamiliar with the law of large numbers, has seven songs in it. How about that? So they're all pretty good, and I really enjoy this movie. So before we get too much further into it, your agent's a little awesome already. It's a little later than usual. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Talk to me about this movie. It seems to be a pretty popular one. It should be. It's really well done, and I've read both the book and the movie and like them both very much, especially this time around. So before After having said all that, let's roll. All right. We start in 19, well, it's probably shot in 69, 1970 San Francisco, where young Milo is living an apathetic life, leading one too. He's bored in school, he's bored in San Francisco, and he's just bored. So these are the opening credits, of course, some of them, not all of them. And oh, geez, now that hoser's roaring.
Follow Butch Patrick on a fantastic trip through the Phantom Tollbooth, where nothing is real but your imagination.
So I never saw the trailer, and I don't remember. It was early. It must have been probably that same year, 1971, I'd say, that I saw this. So I might have been a whopping 6 years old. I later read the book, and as I've discussed, that adaptations didn't make sense as in a child's mind. Even your humble agent, who's very, very smart for a child. Not Wesley Crusher smart, but pretty smart. So Norton Juster wrote the book. Juster. It's a great book. I have read it since then. I mean, I have read it. I own it. I own both this copy from Warner Archives. Thankfully, DVD rot hasn't set in. Thank you, Warners, for being so aware of things. But the book's a tiny bit different. Apparently, he didn't like the movie and was upset that it got good reviews. I'm sure they paid him plenty for it, but it's just a wonderful. And it moves along in a hurry. It's only 89 minutes. It was released on, let's scoop forward here. There he is, missing all the exciting things going on around him. Milo is played by Butch Patrick, and right next to him there is Chuck Jones, I believe. That one of those is Chuck Jones. And not the young lady, but one of them. It was released November 7th, 1970. I didn't see it for I might have been 7, probably a year or two in a kiddie matinee and had no idea what I was getting into, but I liked the title. It runs a scant these days, 89 minutes, and was a big flop, sadly. But I don't know what they couldn't have done a sequel because there's only one book. So it's directed by Chuck Jones and Abe Levital. We all know about Chuck Jones. It's got very much his signature style of animation, so it looks wonderful. I mean, if you've seen it, his Bugs Bunnies, especially his Roadrunners and everything else. Roadrunner versus the Coyote. I'll have to talk about those at some point in time because I love them. Movie. So he's just ignoring. He's ignoring big goats, which want to talk to him. This is where he lives. I'm sure. I don't know if they shot everything. Well, probably because there's only about 10 minutes of live action stuff in here. 10 minutes tops. Phone's ringing, and it's his buddy Ralph. They're both very apathetic young men. They don't want to do anything. What's the point in going out? I mean, boy, it sounds like the 90s all over again. So this movie's ahead of its time. Like you wouldn't believe it's ahead of its time. He's a bored and boring boy. Ooh, that was a lot of alliteration right there. So while he's on the phone to Ralph, not Ralphie, but Ralph. Suddenly, a very strange package shows up, which yells at him and says, "Are you going to take an adventure?" And he's provided this ridiculous little car. So Butch Reed must have been maybe 13 or 14 at this time. He looks very young. I mean, much younger than that. But he's the movie was probably maybe 1968 if he was 13. Took a year to do the animation. We just never know. I mean, we can still talk to Butch, and I wish somebody would do, Hello Kino, Arrow, somebody do a Blu-ray of this movie. It'd be worth it if you can talk to Butch. There's not a lot of people alive left for this, I don't think, but it's got a great cast. I mean, a stellar cast of voice actors. Butch is the only live action person that gets to talk in the movie. Uh, his buddy, they say it's Mike Davis's friend, but down there they also credit uh, um, who else I thought that they credited somebody as Ralph as well as June Foray as Ralph. So take your pick there. They can't be both. Well, they could have been and just ADR'd it, but there's his book of rules and regulations. There's his destination. He thinks, it's better than nothing else. And he promptly passes through and turns into a cartoon. So we knew by this time, I was like, okay, it's going to be a cartoon. It'll be fun. I didn't know who Chuck Jones was at the time. So he decides to go to Dictionopolis, and and then on the way to the castle in the air, which leads you have to beware of off. I mean, at least these signs are there telling you what's ahead. They're kind of spoiling some of the movies, but there he is, Officer Shortshrift, who finds everyone guilty without explanation, probably wants to deport them to some other country. The demons don't like it when you say the castle in the air, and it's like saying Frau Bluka and having the horses whinny. There's the weatherman, and Milo's not paying attention because apparently he doesn't have to pilot this thing. And he ends up headed toward the doldrums. This is the sequence that freaked me out as a kid because I don't like blobby things, and they look like they're kind of amphibian, like frogs. There you go, Agent Frog. I don't think you want to be like them, no. But they're plotting to keep Milo staying instead of going. Should he stay or should he go? You could ask Peter Criss or Joe Strummer. They both wrote songs with those lyrics in them. And Kiss, it's on, I want to say Hotter Than Hell, but don't quote me on that. Maybe Dress to Kill. But look, it's gooey, and they're trying to engulf Milo. Ugh. Blob monsters freak me out. I've watched all the movies, but they still freak me out. But here comes his hero, an unlikely hero, a watchdog. See? That's Talk, who thinks he might have broken his mainspring. But he tells Milo to think of ideas which are deadly to doldrums because they make you want to go out and do stuff. And they become friends. It's because Milo wants to call him Talk. Talk here is voiced by Larry Thor, who was a radio newscaster and had this remarkable voice. See what his filmography is. Pride of St. Louis as a St. Louis games home games announcer. The Amazing Colossal Man, he was in that. Nice. Which is quite a good movie. We'll review those. Maybe as a double feature, because The Amazing Colossal Man's way better than the other one. Lots of sports movies. Anyway, we won't hold his sports ball against him. So, and we do know who Butch Patrick is. He was, among many things, of course, he was Eddie. Whatever happened to Eddie? Well, he was the kid from Mockingbird Lane. So there's another song here. I think this is the second one about time. And of course, there's Time Melting, which is a very famous painting. And then they just stop and look at the beautiful sunset happening. Or then they see Dictionopolis, which is where um, King Azaz the Unabridged, voiced by Hans Conried, who we've seen before and we'll see again, I'm sure. Wonderful voice actor. Oh, we haven't. He was one of the voices in Hoppity Hooper. Hoopity Hopper. The thing about the frog. Ooh, another frog reference. That's twice Agent Frog. There's Digitopolis. There's, there's a river, separating them. But they're upset at each other. There's the castle in the sky. Okay, the demons didn't hear me. There, well, maybe they did. Does that look like a face right there? Looks like a face to me. Dun dun dun. There's the rainbow. But first, we have to meet Cacophonous A. Discord, Doctor of Dissonance. So, really any music past from the 90s on, right? Now get off my lawn. And back when I was a kid, we didn't have children because I'm a grumpy old man and we loved it. But there's the doctor and his assistant, the Awful Din, which I did misspell because I didn't look it up first. But that's his name, really. And in a movie about both words and numbers, I think I can be forgiven. The Din sings a song, and there's a dinosaur in it for a second who hiccups, and they escape. They grow now that since they're headed for Dictionopolis, there's letters. This is what they eat. This is their currency. This is everything. They talk a lot. They burble. They banter. They bicker. They have brouhahas, which we'll see in a moment. But I'm forgetting C's. They chat. They chit chat. And these are the words that begin with D this time. Dictionopolis. There they go. Yeah, that one was for Tamakaze. In fact, this whole review is dedicated to the agent and artist formerly known as Tamakaze. He'll know why. He's got the discipline, the duologue, the dialogues, and this is where they sell their half-baked ideas. There you go. Like I was going to resist that, and we meet the spelling bee and the humbug. The spelling bee would be later used in a Xanth novel to great comedic effect. It didn't talk like this one does. The spelling bee is voiced by Shepard Menken, American. Let's see if I'm selected filmography. Killers from Space is pretty much his only one that I see. The Alvin Show. I don't know who he voiced. The humbug is Les Tremaine, and we know about Les Tremaine. He's also the poetic words vendor. But Les was just his voice is amazing. He's been in tons of everything. So Angry Red Planet, War of the Worlds, to name exactly two. The Lethargians that we just saw were voiced by Thurl Ravenscroft, who sang You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. And they get into, see, there was a brouhaha brewing. And a lot of words fall on people. And unfortunately, Milo gets pronounced guilty. There you go. Officer Short Shrift shows up and sentences him and Talk to 6 million years in prison, which he goes and meets Faintly Macabre, who is her full name is the Not So Wicked Witch, who is voiced by, of course, June Foray, who they give credit to for Ralph, and one of the princesses. But there's her official witch of the Kingdom of Wisdom, which they're not right now because the princesses of Rhyme and Reason are held captive by these idiots, the math magician and King Azaz the Unabridged. They got into a fight. They asked the princesses, who said, you got to coexist, and they didn't like that. So they banished them because they're morons. But Milo's got an appointment for dinner, so they just go down there, take him and Talk out of the dungeon. And this little guy is the comedy relief. There's King Azaz, the Unabridged. And for some reason, the humbug's there. I might have missed that. But they they say, give us a few words. Now, Talk and the humbug know what to order, but Milo starts a speech. Oops. So he's got to eat his own words. A lot of clever wordplay here. I do think that Tamakaze would really appreciate at least this part of the movie. And so they finally decide, well, if you can get him back, let's go. They need a volunteer. The spelling bee zaps the humbug, who yelps, stands up straight, and gets, has to go on his journey. Now they're headed toward Digitopolis, which reminds me of Donald in Math Magic Land, which I'd kind of like to review because I remember seeing that as a kid. And we meet the dodecahedron, who sounds like a certain wascally wabbit, because, of course, Mel Blanc was Officer Short Shrift, the dodecahedron, the demon of insincerity, the letter vendor, ministers, Lethargians, and the overbearing know-it-all, who all sound very similar to a wascally wabbit, a short red-headed Texan who thinks he can outshoot anybody, and you'll know when you hear it. As kids, you recognize the similar voices. Even then, at 7 or 8 years old, I'm like, that really sounds like Bugs Bunny. And there is the math magician, who's also Hans Conried. And he sings a song about the glorious virtues of math, but I'm with Barbie on this one. Math is hard. Oh, I forgot. We could do a little more sound here.
To Dictionopolis, where words are weird.
Words in a word are fantastic. You can hint them, you can say them, you can print them, you can pray them, and precise them, and despise them.
Digitopolis,
there we go.
where figures are free.
Numbers can be added to, subtracted from, divided into, multiplied by, crossed out, and erased.
Climb the mountains of ignorance.
So you can definitely hear that the voices, the math magician and King Azaz, are exactly the same. I just noticed King Azaz is AZ. So Alpha and Omega, if you will. But they both have given Milo some gifts, all the ideas that the words can think of, and the magic pencil, so he can write things down. He can do anything with his own imagination. So then we run into Chroma the Great, who Talk says is the only person who hasn't gone insane, and he's about to conduct tonight's sunset. He's not Leopold, but it's got a little Leopold in him. Thank you, Chuck Jones. And then Milo, of course, not learned from Mickey Mouse and Fantasia, decides he's going to he's supposed to wake up Leopold at exactly 5:23 a.m. But Milo thinks he can do better and just start the sunrise early. So they run away after he causes much commotion.
Their dreams become nightmares.
We have nothing to worry about.
And then they're headed into the land of the demons, I don't know if it says the land of ignorance, but, well, and they meet the census taker. And the only thing that stops him is the sense of humor, which Talk had swiped from Cacophony. And then we meet the terrible Trivium, who, for all, looks like the Riddler. Doesn't he look like the Riddler? Tell me he doesn't look like the Riddler.
And the monsters are magnificent.
So the terrible Trivium gives them trivial tasks to do that will take forever, like playing video games. Not that video games are bad, but if you play them too much, it's trivial. Or, anything. If you do too much of anything. Like a podcast, probably. Be that as it may, they meet the demon of insincerity, the gelatinous giant.
It's the gelatinous giant.
Pass through the Phantom Tollbooth and into the magic world of your mind.
So that's pretty much it for the trailer, probably. You'll see it at the end. But they're running toward the castle in the air, not knowing they're being followed by more demons. They all have names. They decide. Milo says, we're going to make our stand here, because if we don't, we're going to die. The humbug says, maybe we might be better off if we jump. But you see these two, and there's the bare thread of an idea. And Milo's changed. He's active. He's got his brain's engaged. He actually remembers stuff. And he take on the two-headed beast of hypocrisy, which, these days really needs to be taken down.
Rated G.
Oh, and that's it. Rated G. Okay. So you see there's Vector, which means it has speed and something. I've forgotten now. Oh, I failed. So much for, what movie was Gru in? Despicable Me. That was his villain. There he's reaching into the bag of ideas, but he's using the math to do it. And being forthright will just stop the demon of hypocrisy. The overbearing know-it-all needs humility, puffs up and blows up. A little Batman influence there, I'd say, just a tiny bit. But then finally, the final ones absorb themselves into one giant demon of hate, who's pretty impressive looking. And I don't know. This does not look like a Chuck Jones to me, but I mean, could be. Who Talk has had enough, but unfortunately gets his mainspring sprung. So we don't know if he's dead or alive now. And Milo shoots the pen into him, and the curiosity killed the demon of hate, which it would, because if you're curious about life, you won't just believe anything people tell you, right? They dissolve. Milo runs up these vanishing steps to the Castle of Light. I don't know why I kept that one, but he meets the princesses of Sweet Rhyme and Pure Reason. June Foray was the princess of Pure Reason. Patty Gilbert was the princess of Sweet Rhyme. And they're like, "You're rescued." The weatherman shows up to help everyone escape. Here's how. And as the princesses go by, they outfit the humbug in new clothes and revive Talk. Boing! Should have had a boing. And there they go, fixing what Milo did to the Dawn, which causes not Leopold, but Chroma to wake up. There's a little Leopold there. And now everyone's innocent until proven guilty. Maybe he should change his name from Officer Short Shrift to, give him a break. I don't know. The humbug's a fan of truth. There's a song going on here. Now Cacophony is the Doctor of Harmony. Did he change his name? I wonder what happened to the Din, the awful Din. Faintly Macabre. Is she going to change her name? I like the name, Faintly Macabre. They kept calling her Mrs. Macabre, but where was the Mister? The Weatherman? Dun dun dun. But there's numbers and letters coexisting together. The kings are happy because they've agreed to disagree, which is all right. That's fine. And the princesses set off an explosion of fireworks. And Milo gets returned home. The box magically packs itself up and sails away. But the phone's still there. And of course, Milo thinks he's been gone for days, and really it's only been about 2 days. But Ralph says, "You've been gone for 5 minutes. Where you been?" It's just been hanging on the phone for 5 minutes, tying it up. We don't know where Milo's mom or dad is. I mean, latchkey kids were starting, because Ichiro was a latchkey kid in Godzilla's Revenge, and that was 1969. So I'm not saying I had an influence on this because I doubt they did, but they were there. His parents were working, so Milo's could very well have been, and you could wander around San Francisco of all places, taking the trolley, sitting next to cartoonists and artists, and you know how weird those people are. But suddenly, Ralph says he can't talk anymore because something funny happened. Something just landed. Something funny happened. I just like this, take that what you will. Milo goes outside and plays and meets other people, and he's happy. And that's the end of the movie. The song is over. And so is this episode. So, I really enjoy this. We'll give you a vote for the 7 songs that are in the movie. And until our next assignment, this is X7 signing off and phasing out.
Follow Butch Patrick on a fantastic trip through the Phantom Tollbooth, where nothing is real but your imagination. To Dictionopolis, where words are weird.
Words in a word are fantastic. You can hint them, you can say them, you can print them, you can pray them, emphasize them, and despise them.
Digitopolis, where figures are freaky.
Numbers can be added to, subtracted from, divided into, multiplied by, crossed out, and erased.
Climb the mountains of ignorance, where dreams become nightmares.
We have nothing to worry about.
And the monsters are magnificent.
It's the gelatinous giant.
Pass through the Phantom Tollbooth and into the magic world of your mind. Rated G.